Hello, all, and welcome to this Friday afternoon beer review, which I am dubbing the unfortunate beer review. So, I took my car in to go and get the tires replaced because my tires were like literally bald in the back. And while they're doing that, I got the report that, hey, your brake system's really messed up. It needs to be replaced completely. And, because I go to a chain car repair place, I know they don't get paid extra, from like, the mechanics don't get paid extra. They're just salaried employees. So it's like, I know that they're not BSing me. And also, too, a couple weeks back, my car got kind of mildly flooded during a water main break out on the street. So that probably explains a whole lot of problems I've been having. My life is not ideal. Not ideal, to say the least. But enough with that. What are we reviewing? So, I went to Whole Foods a couple of weeks ago, and that's why I haven't uploaded anything for a while. Is because I blew my entire beer budget in one thing. So I thought I was just getting like the normal Narwhal, but I wasn't looking when I grabbed on the shelf you know, and after getting to the top of the line and seeing like $25 for a 4-pack, I realized, oh, this is not the normal Narwhal. This is the barrel-aged Narwhal from Sierra Nevada. So, I blew nearly 3 weeks worth of beer money right there. Oh, this life of mine. But, I get to review something that I don't usually review, which is something barrel-aged. It's not something I have a whole bunch of experience with because of the price point, but it is also too. It's not a style I really am wowed by. I'm not turned off by it, but I'm not wowed by it either. So between those two, it's pretty far and rare and far between before I review these. So this is 11.9 ABV, and let's read the back now, shall we? And it's so moist because I've had it out for about 15 minutes. We want to get this nice and warm because we're going to be putting it in our brandy snifter. I figure, this is actually the recommended type of glassware for this. And since I have a brandy snifter now, why not use it? Why wouldn't I use it? So let's get to the text here. Deep in our barrel room, out of light's reach, our legendary Narwhal Imperial Stout rests in bourbon barrels for nearly a year. After aging, it emerges anew, rich with notes of oak, vanilla, and coconut, layered onto the stout's malt flavors of dark chocolate and espresso. Enjoy this beast of a beer. I just let that head wobble right there. This beast of a beer makes me feel cultured or Indian. One of the two. Alrighty. So yeah. I have 4 cans of this. I've already tasted one. We're going to go and taste it, do the review on this one, and then we're going to stick the other 2 in the fridge for later. See if they improve over time, there. Along with like the, Goose Island Bourbon County one that I got in there. Which I'll open sometime sooner or later. Maybe next year, maybe a few years down the line. We'll see. But let's go and get a little bit more information on this here. Yeah, let's go and read out the old verbiage on this from the Beer Advocate website. So this is what the verbiage used to be on the bottle or can back in the day. So somewhat different. This deliciously dark treat is our bold Narwhal Imperial Stout, aged in oak Kentucky bourbon barrels. Black as midnight, this intense stout is incredibly complex with notes of dark chocolate, rich roasted grains, and espresso seamlessly blended with hints of vanilla and toasted coconut with a slight touch of honey from aging in the oak spirit casks. Nearly as rare as its nautical namesake, try it out for while you can, because like the creature itself, it will disappear into the blackness soon and leave nary a trace behind. See, a little bit more poetic there, yeah? Additional info. Narwhal was aged for 8 months on fresh bourbon barrels, a combination of Willet Single Barrel, Heaven Hill, and various Beam brands. So, yeah, that might be outdated because I see the ABV doesn't quite match here. So this is like it says here 12.9. This is actually 11.9 on here. So it might be different, you know, the recipe. Because for these special ones, they do switch it up quite a bit. Okay, it's already been 5 minutes. We haven't even cracked this open yet. So let's go and do the deed, shall we? Do the deed. I just made this seem like really risque. Why did I do that? Heaven knows. Oh my goodness. Pours like fresh motor oil. Well, used motor oil, perhaps, is a better thing to say there. Let's go and try to build up a head here. I didn't know a sniffer could hold that much. This is a, you know, pint here. And, yeah. Probably should have gone for halfway, otherwise I'm losing the snifter aspect of it, but 'tis what it is. So, no light gets through whatsoever. Surprise, surprise, with that used motor oil. And about half a finger's worth of brown head here. That's pretty thinning out. Hmm. Yeah, so I'm going to put this down. It's kind of hard to hold. Oh boy, it's really, that head dissipated quickly. Thankfully, this is a fairly big beer, so I can still smell it. So yeah, got that espresso, dark chocolate. Definitely do get that coconut. Yeah, pretty big coconut note for something that doesn't have coconut added. And all in all, I kind of wish the head hadn't dissipated. Last one I had, the head didn't dissipate. Well, we'll go and be smelling this throughout, shall we? So let's go and get this down a bit. Onto the palate now. Ooh. Boy, that's a pretty drastic transition on the palate. So my original tasting had this in the tall glass. Putting it in the wide glass seems to have really changed the flavor profile quite a bit. Okay, let's not go too fast because my stomach's pretty empty. I had breakfast, but I didn't have lunch. Yeah, there is a lot going on here, so please excuse my silence. Okay, let's start from the rear and kind of work our way through it, huh? So, very long lasting finish. Almost like roasted coffee and a long finish. Hints of herbaceous hopping. So probably the biggest change by having it in the snifter is for some reason the booziness, the alcohol heat seems much reduced. And I'm wondering if that's a function of the different dynamics of the sipping process. When I'm sipping this, I'm actually taking in less than when I have like the regular beer glass, and it's distributed over a wider area of the tongue. So up front, some semi-sweet chocolate, coconut, and there's a top note that emerges in the mids and into the finish, but not all the way into the long finish. Sort of woodsy, herbaceous, evocative of carob, coconut, even a slight subtle smokiness on the palate and in the top note as well in the mids to finish. Yeah. Yeah, those carob notes are pretty strong. Actually, I find it stronger than the coconut note, though most people don't have experience with tasting carob, so I kind of think that they blend it into the coconut. But there's just like a more of a sharper, spicier note to it than coconut, I would say. Than just coconut. Coconut's there as well. The dark malting is not super roasted. It kind of yeah, there's some espresso like notes to it, but it's like a light roast. It's not or light or medium roast. It's not a full dark roast. There's a lot of residual sugars too. And it's not the thickest um, barrel aged beer that I've had. I mean, by no means would I say it's thin, but it is not like thick on the palate. Not overly oily. Some slight dark fruit notes emerge underneath those more roasty notes in the mid palate as well. Dark stone fruit like black cherry, definitely underneath, the bittersweet and dark chocolate and espresso notes. And coconut and carob notes are definitely higher up. And then, they're more there in the top note as well. There's definitely a booziness to it, especially up front and in the finish. But having it in the snifter really seems to have reduced that boozy aspect to it. I gotta go and try heavier beers than this from now on. The only downside that I can say is that it didn't retain its head. but it is definitely going down a lot easier in this wide mouth glass. Oh yeah, that's coming out of the nose now. So as it's warming and having more space to collect, vapors, an umami note, almost like soy sauce, sweet soy sauce, is emerging. The kind of soy sauce that they use for certain Japanese desserts that's sweetened with brown sugar, as instead of salt. It allows for kind of an umami to form on the palate in the front to mids. Top note on this is like really complex, but unfortunately, I'm getting mildly triggered right now in regards to sinusitis. Yeah, so kind of sweet chocolate notes. I wouldn't say milk chocolates, but like sweet dark chocolate and herbaceous carob-like notes and coconut are all up in there, and they're just kind of like one pops up after another. It's fairly distinct. It's not mushed. Boy, that soy umami note is really big in the nose right now. Excuse me, I'm going to go and do some clearance. I really want to get this. I really want to get this well. That's why. Yeah, so kind of got that soy, and it's overpowered the even the espresso notes at this point. Pretty decent carbonation for a beer this heavy. And what I can say is that it's not really, overwhelming like some other bourbon barrel aged ones can be. And now that I think of some other differences from it being in this sort of glass here, a snifter glass instead of being the tall glass, is that a certain taste note that was very apparent in like my initial tasting is now no longer really apparent. And that's sort of a kind of rum raisin, rum ball note. It's been really replaced by other notes. Kind of goes to show you how much of a difference glassware can make in tasting a beer. I mean, if you're looking for it, especially now that it's warmer, you can find it there. Sort of rum ball, rum raisin, but it's kind of segues into like burnt brown sugar as well. But I prefer it in this just because it removes the booziness by quite a good deal, and I'm not sure why. I'm guessing because the wider area of the top surface here allows it that the more volatile booze to kind of evaporate off. so that it's not evaporating off while it's in my mouth. Because booziness definitely hits more as a top note than a palate note. I mean, it is really an improvement. It went from really, really strong boozy note in, the tall craft beer glass to an almost non-existent boozy note in this. Granted, we lost one, and now that I think of it, losing a note of rum or rum raisin or rum balls is probably an artifact of that, lesser, lessened booziness. Granted, rum is better than just like sort of heat, but you get what I'm saying there. As it warms up, the herbaceous notes are kind of slowly kind of going back, and more honeyed sweet notes are kind of showing up on the palate. Again, still pretty complex. I mean, I could talk for ages about this. That's one of the nice things about these barrel aged stouts is that they got a lot of notes and they're pretty complex. Thing is, a lot of those notes are shared between all of them, so you're not going to be getting a unique experience with each one, but there's always a lot of them in there, and they're always pretty well discreet. Whereas Imperial IPAs, I find that they get mushy a lot more. They're it's hard to distinguish like singular tasting notes to it. Yeah, this is pleasant, man. And yeah, the alcohol is really kicking in right now. If you have not noticed, I'm getting red more because I was in the sun today. Why? Because I was sitting outside because I didn't want to sit in the waiting room of the garage because they have like one of those TVs. Why does every waiting room have a TV? It's like everyone's got phones now. People who want visual, that kind of visual simulation, they can go and look on their phone, put it in earphone, what have you. And the rest of us can read. It's like, no, you gotta have a blasting TV, usually with the most insipid thing that you can think of on it, or what have you. But I'm ranting. It's almost 23 minutes in, and I don't got time to rant. Ain't nobody got time for that. Anyways, even though this blew out my beer budget for a couple weeks, this is probably one of the more affordable barrel aged imperial stouts that you can find. Mostly because it comes in this 4 pack of, pint cans. So that's probably a lot of bang for your buck. It's about 25 here in Hawaii, which means it's probably around 20 on the mainland. I don't think you can do much better than that. And since they're so discreet, you can have two now and then put another couple, or if you want, three away to age and just see how they evolve over the years. And I'm looking forward to seeing how those two cans I got evolve over the years, if they maintain themselves, that is. And yeah, yeah. I don't know why I say I'm kind of meh about Imperial, these barrel aged beers. When every time I have one, I have a lot to go and talk about. I think one of the main reasons I don't drink them too much is because they wipe me out. I mean, like this is all I'm going to be able to drink for today. Whereas like I do a review and then I have like a couple of like lighter, more swishy beers, more swishy beers, sessionable beers, swishy beers. Hey, sessionable beers. Um, after I review the main beer while I'm eating or gaming, and it's a thing. But yeah, after this is like, yeah, I ain't gonna be able to game now. That's for sure. Especially since I still got about 1/3 of this to finish. You know what I mean? But yeah, yeah. Um, Due to the price point, if you want to go and experiment with, um, barrel aged beers, this is probably the best one to get your foot in the door with, as well as probably the Goose Island line too. But Goose Island line suffers from FOMO, so you're not going to see that on the shelves like this was, which, this sitting on the shelves is an artifact of like my mistake. Usually barrel aged beers don't sit on the shelf. This one sat on the shelf. And I'm rambling and I am slurring my words, which means that this review has gone on for quite enough time. And so I wish you all a good evening and a more prosperous and worry-free life than mine, my good viewers. You are the ones who make my life worth looking forward to every week. And that, folks, is your beer review for this afternoon, early evening. Time to watch YouTube videos. Cheers.